needs to open the pipeline and build affordable social housing for people in need.
Huh? Déclaration des députés, statements by members. Maintenant qu'on a tout clarifié.
Now that we've clarified everything.
Market Aurora.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Some heroes wear capes, others wear masks, face shields, gloves, and gowns, but all heroes protect our communities by keeping them safe. Since the start of this pandemic, nurses across Canada have been in the front lines in our battle against this virus. Many have been going to work every day in conditions that could pose a threat to their health, and many have been isolating from their families so they could care for ours. As we celebrate National Nursing Week, it's important for us to recognize that nurses are the soul of our healthcare system and have always been so. Let us recognize, too, that each one of us has a role to play in keeping our nurses safe as this pandemic continues. Let's do our part to stop this spread of this virus. Follow public health advice and get vaccinated when it's your turn. To the nurses in Newmarket, Aurora, and across Canada, thank you for your courage, commitment, compassion, and sacrifices. You truly are our superheroes.
For Richmond Centre.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This past week, Greater Vancouver had lost a pillar of its community. Ambrose Woon Tu Choi and his family immigrated to Canada in 2004 and started their family business. After years of hard work, Ambrose Holdings Canada became a successful exporting company and started to give back to the community. The Ambrose and Matilda charity concerts have raised funds to benefit hospital foundations, homeless shelters, and numerous charities. They have also touched many hearts in my riding of Richmond Centre. I was there during Veterans Week last year at a special concert they coordinated at VIVL to honor the veterans and to thank the frontline people at the airport. To cheer the medical staff of the Richmond Hospital, the Richmond Food Bank, and children with disabilities, they deliver them boxes of chocolates, the locally made Matilda's chocolates. Ambrose, a proud Canadian of Korean descent, suffered a heart attack and is now with the Lord. To Matilda, Eric, and Alex, thank you for sharing with us your beloved husband and father. He will surely be missed.
The Honourable Member for St. John Rothsay.
Mr. Speaker, my riding of St. John Rothsay is home to Port St. John, an economic jewel in our region and one of Canada's busiest ports by volume. It's our province's gateway to the world. I'm thrilled that through Budget 2021, we have committed to strengthening our regional, cross-border, and international trade by allocating $1.9 billion in funding over 4 years to renew the National Trade Corridors Fund, which is great news for our port's future growth and development. This funding will attract almost $3 billion in private investment in our hardest hit communities. This will reduce barriers to trade and bring stronger supply chains, improving container business opportunities right here, which will strengthen our local economy and help create meaningful employment in southern New Brunswick. I am proud of our government and Budget 2021 and what it means for Canadians across the country, here at home, my great riding of St. John Rothsay. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
L'honorable député de Berthier-Masquinongé.
Monsieur le Président, chaque année des...
Mr. Speaker, every year, hundreds of farms disappear in Quebec. The need to support the next generation of farmers is as urgent as it is obvious. And yet, the federal government makes it easier for a farmer to sell his business to outside shareholders rather than his own family. A farmer can either sell his land to a stranger and ensure a decent retirement, since the sale will be eligible for the lifetime capital gains exemption, or sell to his family and forego that comfortable retirement. Tomorrow, we have an opportunity to correct this situation. The Bloc Québécois has been criticizing it for 15 years. Bill CO8 will facilitate the transfer of businesses. I co-sponsored this bill because the Bloc Québécois believes that if it's good for Quebec farmers, we vote for it. That's what being proud is about. It's a moment of truth for the future of agriculture in Quebec, and I invite everybody here to really support the next generation of farmers.
Député de Glengarry, Prescott Russell.
Monsieur le Président,
Mr. Speaker, I rise in the House to recognize the work of all nurses. Until last year, every time I was sick, my grandmother always stepped in. She was my grandmother, but also a nurse who was passionate about helping her patients. As part of National Nursing Week, I want to highlight the work of nurses who have always answered their patients' call.
At the start of this pandemic, nurses were there caring for COVID-19 patients, despite the fact the world knew very little about this infectious disease. They were there for those patients who had close calls but made it through. They were there to hold the hands of patients who took their last breath. And nurses are now administering vaccines so Canadians can get back to a normal life. Mr. Speaker, I personally want to thank Ms. Sherry McDonald, registered nurse in my riding, who took care of my ailing aunt until she passed last month. À tous les infirmières.
To all nurses who have always been there to answer the call and take care of us in our communities, I want to say a big thank you.
Le député de Charbot, Haute-Saint-Charles.
Monsieur le Président, aujourd'hui, j'ai l'honneur de...
Mr. Speaker, today I have the honor of rising in this chamber to acknowledge the strength of organizations, businesses, and citizens in Charlebourg, Haute-Saint-Charles during the crisis. We talk about resilience and acceptance, but I've seen people come together to help each other. The Knights of Columbus, food counters, organizations like Patrouille de Charlebourg or Rafale, to name but a few, have all united to help their communities. They've proven that during adversity, people who decide to work together can accomplish great things. I'm proud to highlight that a year after the start of the crisis, the work of the people on the front lines that I visited last year at this time to salute their courage to stay in the fight. The flag, "We Will Succeed Together," is displayed in their honor in each of the residences and long-term care centers. To the citizens of Charlebourg, Haute-Saint-Charles, entrepreneurs, volunteers, and organizations, I'm proud to represent you, and above all, I'm inspired by your commitment, which is a breath of fresh air in our riding. Thank you.
The honourable member for Pickering-Uxbridge.
Mr. Speaker, today I rise to recognize National Nurses Week, which takes place from May 10th to May 16th. Nurses play a critical role in delivering healthcare services, shaping our health system, and improving the health of Canadians. The dedication of nurses has never been more evident than it is right now during the COVID-19 pandemic. Across Canada, nurses have provided unwavering support to patients, demonstrating leadership and professionalism under challenging circumstances. Nurses have been working around the clock at great personal sacrifice and with the knowledge that being on the front lines may expose their own families to risk. I commend the great work nurses have done and continue to do, and I'd like to acknowledge one special nurse to me, the member for Brampton West, who put her scrubs back on to help her community during this pandemic. She's an inspiration to us all. I invite all of my colleagues to use the hashtag National Nursing Week on social media to celebrate the nurses across Canada and to thank them for their dedication to our communities. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Brampton East.
Mr. Speaker, this past weekend, mothers across Canada were celebrated for their courage, hard work, and resilience. As the saying goes, it takes a village to raise a child. Across the country this past year, families such as my own saw their villages shift and oftentimes disappear. To all the moms out there, kudos to you for single-handedly embodying the village our children need. Your efforts day in and day out to get children and communities through this past year cannot be overlooked. To all the mothers who took on more hats than anyone should have to, from teacher, referee, IT support, camp counselor, and oftentimes friend to children struggling to adjust, my hat goes off to you. A very special thank you to my mom and mother-in-law for the countless care packages, video calls, and impromptu dance classes with my children. To my wife, Ava, and Maya's mom, Joe, we are incredibly lucky to have you in our lives. Once again, to all those taking on a motherly role, happy Mother's Day. No amount of celebrating will ever truly live up to the tireless work you do each and every day. Thank you.
The honourable member for Sturgeon River Parkland.
Mr. Speaker, the unseasonably dry weather in northern Alberta has wreaked havoc on our local communities. Today, I'm thinking of the folks out in Parkland County, where at least 300 people had to evacuate their homes in the face of a wildfire that broke out last Thursday night, covering over 2,200 hectares. I'm incredibly proud of the leadership at Parkland County, including Parkland Fire Chief Brian Cornforth and the over 60 firefighters who came from across Alberta, some as far as High Level, to help battle this blaze. Mayor Rod Shagas of Parkland County also wanted me to particularly thank the staff at the Emergency Operations Center, the towns of Drayton Valley, Stony Plain, and the counties of Clearwater and Brazeau for their considerable assistance to our communities. The fire isn't out yet, but it's growing. It has stopped growing, and we will defeat it. This is the spirit of Alberta. We've made it through floods and fires, and now we're getting through this pandemic. And one thing I know for sure is that you can't keep Albertans down. We will always come back up. Alberta strong.
L'honorable député de Madawaska-Restigouche.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Election day for most municipalities of beautiful New Brunswick. The results will be known in a few days. Avant de connaître ces résultats, j'aimerais souligner le travail.
About these results, I want to highlight the devotion of the elected officials. Their mandate was extended by a year.
During these years, working on infrastructure projects, for instance, festivals, cultural events, etc. Being on a municipal council takes a lot of time, and I thank all of these people for generously giving their time for the best interest of their respective communities. Au maire, conseillère.
To the mayor's councillors who will retire, thank you so much for your great work and good luck in your future endeavors.
And to all new candidates, the best of luck to you. J'anticipe une belle collaboration.
I expect great cooperation with municipal councillors, and together we'll work together on great projects in Madawaska-Restigouche. Good luck, everyone.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
The honourable member for Calgary Signal Hill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's now less than 24 hours before Enbridge's Line 5, carrying important petroleum products to Ontario and Quebec, is due to be shut down. If the Michigan governor follows through on her promise, thousands of jobs in Western Canada will be in jeopardy. But more important, the impact will be felt by Canadians east of the Great Lakes. When we wake up in the morning, the Minister of Heritage, who has spent much of his adult life hanging from the sides of buildings protesting pipelines, will have to explain to his constituents why they don't have propane to heat their homes. And Liberal MPs from Toronto, who want to phase out fossil fuels, will have to explain to their constituents why planes carrying vaccines can no longer land at Pearson Airport because there's a shortage of jet fuel. But just wait a minute. Maybe on second thought, Conservative MPs should be allowing the Michigan governor to shut this pipeline down, because she may be able to drive home a point to political parties in this place that no amount of debate to date could accomplish.
The honourable member for Edmonton Centre.
Mr. Speaker, as we watch other countries begin to open up and reduce their pandemic restrictions, the world witnesses Canada trailing far behind due to a lack of leadership from the Prime Minister. I was recently asked by a constituent, is there any hope? Canadians are desperate for leadership and clarity on when they will see an end in sight and how we will navigate through the coming months. They've been asking for transparency and a strategic plan to open the economy. Mr. Speaker, I rise today to say yes, there is hope with the Conservative Party. We are ready to lead where this Prime Minister has failed. We have a plan to secure the future, which includes the growth of jobs, renewed investment, and ample opportunity inclusive to every sector and every person in this country. This means taking full advantage of the abundance of natural resources, highly skilled and educated workforce, and permitted expanded access to global markets. Together, coast to coast to coast, we will foster a prosperous future for all, ensuring that no demographic or no region is left behind.
The honourable member for St. John's East.
Newfoundland and Labrador's fiscal situation is not sustainable. A bad situation has been made worse by the pandemic, and major changes are recommended. There are revenue, debt, and other issues to be addressed by the province, but the Government of Canada has a role to play too. We support 4 measures proposed by the Green Report that can help greater federal-provincial fairness. Significant improvements need to be made to the fiscal stabilization program, including removal of the per capita tax. Health transfers must increase. Healthcare costs now dominate provincial budgets, and Ottawa pays only 22% instead of the 50% at the outset of Medicare. We need to fix equalization formula to remove non-renewable natural resource revenue, and provinces need access to Canada's credit standing and borrowing rates through a new bond program. The federal government has a vital role in helping ensure there's a sustainable financial path forward for Newfoundland and Labrador. So far, this Liberal government has simply not done enough to hold up its side of the bargain.
Honorable député de Belleuil-Chambly.
Monsieur le Président.
Mr. Speaker, Serge Bouchard has left us. He left behind us his wisdom, his unique voice, and his friendship with the First Peoples. A host, an author, an anthropologist, he had so many virtues. Serge Bouchard was a reassuring voice and a necessary one. He talked about the right to exist as a nation for all nations, especially the First Nations. Filled with doubt and honesty. For Quebecers, for Indigenous people in particular, never was complacent. He was always affectionate. His friends, his family, his colleagues, his readers, and his listeners can have the Bloc Québécois' most sincere condolences. His voice, his humanity, his wisdom, his uncomplacent wisdom will be missed. I already miss the anthropologist. The monograph of his afterlife is starting today.
The honourable member for Kelowna Lake Country.
Mr. Speaker, I've heard from hundreds of constituents in Kelowna Lake Country expressing their concerns about the Liberal government's attempted overreach to regulate individual Canadian internet users through Bill C-10. The Macdonald-Laurier Institute stated C-10, quote, constitutes a full-blown assault on free expression. University of Ottawa professor Michael Geist, Canada's research chair in Internet and e-commerce law on C-10, said it, quote, represents an exceptionally heavy-handed regulatory approach where a government-appointed regulator decides what individual user-generated content is prioritized. CBC reported, quote, free speech is at risk. Yet, the Prime Minister calls those in Parliament who question him on this topic as having tinfoil hats. Now, the Liberal Minister for Canadian Heritage has been trying to undo the confusing pretzel of information he's twisted, but Canadians in this free and democratic country are smarter than he thinks they are. Conservatives will persist in standing for freedoms of Canadians who post their content online. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Kitchener-Conestoga.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I'm honored to recognize a campaign launched by the Canada Live Music Association, a campaign that holds a special place in my heart. I've been a professional musician my entire adult life, and I understand that making a living as an artist is challenging at the best of times. The pandemic has had a devastating impact on live events, with every stage in the world going dark. The Canadian Live Music Association launched an awareness campaign, #ForTheLoveOfLive, focused on the impacts felt by our artists, festival and concert employees, venues, promoters, talent agencies, production crews, and many others. To everyone associated with the live events industry, you have our support, you have our respect for the resilience you're demonstrating. We've all cherished memories connected with live music and events. Let's show our support by posting messages with the #ForTheLoveOfLive. We look forward to the day when live performances return, when all the world's a stage once again. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Oral questions. Question orale. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, tomorrow, the Governor of Michigan wants to shut down the Line 5 pipeline that is critical to the Canadian economy. After many months of inaction, this morning, mere hours before the deadline, the Liberal government filed an objection with the court. Is this last-minute legal action an admission that this Prime Minister's outreach to President Biden has failed?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, Line 5 is a critical piece of infrastructure both for Canada and the United States. It's vital for energy workers and families on both sides of the border. Today, the Government of Canada filed a submission in U.S. court in support of the continued safe operation of Line 5 and in support of continued mediation between Michigan and the company. As we have for many months, Ambassador Hillman and government officials will continue to engage with our counterparts on this important issue.
Monsieur le Président, demain...
Mr. Speaker, tomorrow the Governor of Michigan wants to turn off Enbridge's Line 5. This closure would affect all workers from Montreal to Lévis. After months of inaction, this morning, a few hours before the deadline, the Liberal government tabled an objection at the court. Why is the Liberal government again lagging on protecting Canadian jobs? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. On the contrary, Mr. Speaker, Line 5 is essential infrastructure for Canada and the U.S. That's why we're working on this issue and have been for months. This line is vital for energy sector workers and families on both sides of the border. Today, the Government of Canada tabled a memo before the American court concerning the safe operation of Line 5 and a requested mediation between Enbridge and Michigan. Ambassador Hillman and other officials from our government are continuing to raise this issue with their American counterparts. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
5 fois.
5 times the Prime Minister's Cabinet and the Privy Council office used the term sexual harassment in emails concerning General Vance. Why did the Prime Minister personally approve a pay increase for General Vance when his office was studying allegations of sexual harassment? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, as the Leader of the Opposition knows well, it's not my office that studied these allegations. That would be inappropriate for a political office to lead the investigation into such allegations. That's why my office ensured that this was passed on to the appropriate authorities so that they could do their independent investigation. Our government has always taken the protection of women and men serving in our armed forces seriously, and we will always be there to support survivors. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, 5 different times the Prime Minister's office, the Privy Council office, and the Minister's office all used the phrase sexual harassment in emails regarding General Vance. A senior Liberal told the Toronto Star this weekend that the PMO and PCO both knew it was of a sexual nature. Why did the Prime Minister personally sign off on General Vance's pay raise while his office was actively covering up allegations of sexual harassment? The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, that's simply not the truth. When allegations were brought forward from the Ombudsperson to the Minister of National Defence, he knew that it would be inappropriate for politicians to engage in such an investigation. That's why he forwarded it to the appropriate authorities at the PCO so they could follow up on it. That, by the way, was exactly the same process followed when the Leader of the Opposition was in government and received allegations concerning General Vance. We followed the right process on this, and we know we have much more to do to ensure the protection of anyone who wants to come forward.
Honourable Leader of the Opposition. The right process, Mr. Speaker. The Prime Minister just contradicted his Chief of Staff. Katie Telford did investigate the nature of the allegations because she told committee, Mr. Speaker, that she knew the complaint was not, quote, a safety issue. Well, if she knew it wasn't a safety issue, she would have had to know the underlying elements of the allegation made against General Vance. It sounds like Ms. Telford was conducting investigation and spoke to someone about the nature of the complaint. Who was? The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, as a government, from the very beginning, we have taken extraordinarily seriously the responsibility of standing up for survivors, of making sure that women and men who serve in our armed forces, in our institutions across this country, have the right kinds of support and recourses. What is very clear is, despite all the significant actions that we've taken as a government, all the significant progress that we've had, women and men who are survivors of sexual assault or harassment still aren't getting the right support. That's why we are doing more, Mr. Speaker. We will always take this seriously and put survivors' interests first.
The Honourable Member for Belleuil-Chambly. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. At the beginning of the pandemic, we all agreed that we didn't want to have an election during the pandemic. The government led consultations on what we might eventually be able to change for the Election Act, but it didn't finish those consultations. It tabled a bill. It didn't allow anyone to study that bill. And now it's imposing a closure, with the NDP's help, to allow an election during a pandemic. Does the Prime Minister want to have an election during the pandemic? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. No, Mr. Speaker. In fact, with this bill that we are now sending to committee for study, parliamentarians will be able to study how we might be able to conduct an election safely during a pandemic. But we don't want an election. In fact, Mr. Speaker, it's the Bloc Québécois and the Conservative Party who just a few weeks ago voted saying that they didn't have confidence in the government. So they're looking for an election. On this side of the House, we are working to deliver on Canadians and to get them through the pandemic. The Honourable Member for Belleuil-Chambly. Well, I'm not afraid of an election. Bring it on. But we don't want to have an election during the pandemic. Now, if there's no pandemic, we don't need an act to manage an election during a pandemic. So it seems like the government wants to have an election during the pandemic. What is the Prime Minister's priority here? Is it the health and safety of Canadians, or taking advantage of Conservative weakness to have an election more quickly? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, unfortunately, this is a little bit far-fetched. During this pandemic, we learned that what's important is to be ready for anything. We know that it is possible, with a minority government, that we might have to have an election. And in fact, the Bloc and the Conservatives voted to have an election just a few weeks ago. We will ensure that we can study the options to be ready if there were to be an election. But we don't want an election. It's the opposition parties who are talking about elections. We are working for Canadians. The Honourable Member for Burnaby South.
The Prime Minister takes a knee at a Black Lives Matter protest and then turns around and sends the military to spy on those protesters. We just learned that the military spied on protesters to learn how protesters organized, who the major actors were, and what the core narratives were, all the while using the pandemic and the crisis in long-term care as an excuse, which makes no sense. These are people that are concerned about systemic racism killing Black people. So why did the Prime Minister send the military to spy on concerned people who are raising their voice about systemic racism and how it kills Black people?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I agree with the member of the opposition that these the leader of the NDP that these reports are extremely concerning. People have a right to gather and protest, and we are looking into this matter. These reports are very disturbing. We know there are systemic challenges that the military is facing that must be addressed. It's a priority for this government that we promote equality, equity, and inclusion in all of our activities, including in the Canadian Armed Forces, and we will be following up on those troubling reports.
Honourable Member for Burnaby South.
Today we learned that the Prime Minister sent the Canadian Armed Forces to spy on Black Lives Matter activists. And as a justification, he cited the healthcare crisis and the pandemic. This makes no sense. There's no connection between these things. This is a movement to call for racial justice. Did the Prime Minister send the armed forces to spy on other protesters in other provinces like Quebec? Protesters calling for racial justice? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, like the leader of the NDP, I'm very concerned by these reports and some of the information that we heard this morning. This is very troubling. And that's why we are going to be closely monitoring the situation. Because all across Canada, people should be free to protest and to express their disagreement with the policies of government and society. We will always be there to defend freedom of expression and the freedom to gather. We recognize that within the armed forces there are issues with systemic racism and discrimination, and we will be monitoring that as well. The Honourable Member for Chicoutimi-Le-Fjord. Mr. Speaker, the Minister of Heritage himself confirmed that the government would be regulating social media users who have many followers or subscribers. He even mentioned that they would be regulated not by the government, but by the CRTC. I can't believe that Canadians who have a lot of subscribers or who are successful online would be subject to the regulation of their content. The Conservatives are proud of Canadian culture and talent, so why are the Liberals trying to regulate that? The Honourable Minister. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's been clear since the beginning that what we want is to focus on two things. First of all, we want social media platforms to contribute financially to our cultural industry in Quebec and Canada. And secondly, we want to make sure that our Canadian artists can be discovered on platforms like YouTube. I was relieved to see that the Conservatives are finally starting to listen to the cultural sector, and they've stopped their 2 weeks of useless filibustering. We will continue to stand with our artists and content creators, and we are looking forward to the committee resuming its work soon. The cultural sector is behind us on this one. The Honourable Member for Chicoutimi-Le-Fjord. Mr. Speaker, the Minister started out by saying that the government and the CRTC regulations in Bill C-10 would apply to people who have a lot of subscribers and who make a lot of money and could be considered as influencers or broadcasters. But the next day, he said the opposite. I don't know if the minister understands his own bill, but one thing is clear. It's extremely vague and confusing, and that's unacceptable. Why is the Liberal government trying to impose a law that will violate Canadians' freedom of expression? The Honourable Minister. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Bill C-10 aims to standardize the rules for Canadian creators and web giants. It will force large, powerful foreign companies to contribute financially, to support Canadian culture, and to allow different audiences to discover our culture as well. The bill explicitly says that these obligations will only apply to web giants and not to Canadian users. For too long,
rester exempt de toute réglementation, notre gouvernement a choisi l'action plutôt.
The government has chosen to be proactive on this.
The Honourable Member for Lethbridge.
Aspiring creatives have found a way to successfully market themselves on social media. In doing so, they pose a threat to big arts and culture groups that have traditionally relied on government favors in order to stay afloat. Finding it hard to compete with savvy YouTubers, those arts and culture groups knocked on the government's door and asked the Prime Minister to tip the scales. Enter Bill C-10. Please remind me, how does picking winners and losers protect Canadian culture?
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Unfortunately, we have another sad example of Conservative Party members dragging through the mud our great Canadian creators, wildly renowned around the world, who've just recently, a number of them won a number of awards at a number of different festivals, Mr. Speaker. It's a sad moment, and unfortunately another example of how the Conservative Party is again listening to the most extremist element of its own party while dragging the mud our Canadian artists.
Member for Lethbridge.
Speaker.
The minister is talking about those groups that receive handouts from the government in order to stay afloat. He's not talking about those individuals who work hard in order to capture an audience organically on YouTube. Canadian content creators have worked hard to capture massive audiences without any help from government. And yet we see the Liberals attempting to tip the scales in favor of those big lobby groups. And they're doing so by penalizing individual Canadians for finding success on social media without government support. Bill C-10 is a disastrous attack on freedom and those with a creative or entrepreneurial edge. So when will the Heritage Minister listen to Canadian content creators and back off?
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Again, let me be clear, C10 aims to level the playing field between creators and web giants, and I continue to be baffled by the fact that the Conservative Party of Canada has decided to side with some of the wealthiest and most powerful companies in the world against our Canadian artists in this country and our musicians. We will require big, powerful foreign streamers to provide information on their revenues in Canada, financially contribute to Canadian stories and music, and make it easier for individuals to discover our culture. The bill explicitly says that obligations apply to web giants only, not Canadian users.
The Honourable Member for Richmond North Athabasca. Mr. Speaker, the Minister of Heritage outdid himself yesterday by reporting on Twitter that public opinion is currently being manipulated by a misinformation campaign deliberately implemented by commercial interests who would rather not have the same rules imposed on them as broadcasters. Does he really consider the concerns of Canadians, analysts, experts, professors, and all those who've spoken out against his bill are part of some grand conspiracy theory? Seriously? The Honourable Minister. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to read an extract of a letter in the press this morning from Professor Saunier at the University of Montreal. He says that the entire cultural industry in Quebec is aware that Francophone culture is increasingly being marginalized by some of these big companies. This is a dangerous game that the Conservative Party is playing. Now, they claim to be defending the French language, but this honourable member will be depriving Quebec artists of hundreds of thousands of dollars. The honourable member for Richmond Athabasca. Mr. Speaker, this minister loves to change the channel. It's insulting to see this minister, following his repeated failures, blaming honest Canadians who are shocked by the Liberals' attack on our freedom of expression. The only reason we're in this mess is because of his inability to deliver a decent bill. And if his latest public statements are any indication, he's doing nothing to dispel people's doubts. Why does the minister insist on playing petty politics with free speech advocates, as he just did by attacking freedom of expression? The Honourable Minister. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I want to thank my honourable colleague for giving me this opportunity to name some of the many organizations that have already supported Bill C-10. For example, the Society of Authors and Composers in Quebec, the National Alliance of Music Industry, the Association de distributeurs exclusifs de livres en langue française, the HoC, the French-Canadian Cultural Association, the Union of Artists, the Society of Performing Artists, the Quebec Association of Dramatic Artists. The Honourable Member for Rivière-du-Nord. Mr. Speaker, when you question the government about General Vance's allegations of sexual misconduct, they say, we acted immediately. But, Mr. Speaker, they didn't fire him. They didn't investigate. They didn't initiate disciplinary action. They didn't implement the recommendations of the 2015 Deschamps report. Nope. Instead, they kept the general in his position with a nice salary bump for 3 years while shelving the Deschamps report. So when the government says, we acted immediately, what are they talking about exactly? The Honourable Minister.
When Mr. Walburn brought the information forward, I reached out immediately to the Privy Council office, and then the Privy Council office officials reached out to Mr. Walburn the very next day. That's immediate action, Mr. Speaker. But we know that we have a lot more work to do. Our government takes allegations of sexual misconduct very seriously. No one should feel unsafe at work. Some of the work that we have been doing, Mr. Speaker, when we passed Bill C-77, a declaration of victims' rights to put victims at the core of the military justice system, and which also reviews unfounded cases. We have more work to do, Mr. Speaker, and we will get it done. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Rivière-du-Nord. Mr. Speaker, it's very embarrassing that it's still this minister answering these questions. After 3 years of inaction, unfortunately, he has no more credibility. After refusing to hear the allegations against General Vance, he just doesn't have the credibility to intervene on behalf of victims. That's why the Bloc Québécois has called for him to be removed from office. He's lost credibility. So does the House leader realize that he undermines the credibility of his own government every time he asks this parliamentarian to speak out on sexual misconduct in the military? The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, no politician should ever be involved in any investigation, Mr. Speaker. We need to take swift action, and swift action was taken. When the information was brought forward, it was immediately passed on to the Privy Council office, who followed up with Mr. Walburn the very next day. As I stated, Mr. Speaker, we have a lot more work to do, and we will get it done. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Kildonan St. Paul.
Mr. Speaker, while small businesses in my riding are struggling with yet another lockdown, the Liberals have been showering their rich Bay Street friends with millions of taxpayer dollars. We've recently learned that a hedge fund company worth $180 billion received $3 million from the taxpayer through the wage subsidy. Meanwhile, a woman entrepreneur in my riding who opened up a gym right before the pandemic hit has been unable to qualify for any federal programs, and yet the Liberals refuse to fix this. So will the Prime Minister explain to women entrepreneurs why Bay Street hedge funds deserve more support than they do?
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I'd like to thank the member opposite for the question, because it gives me an opportunity to talk about how important it is that our business support programs, very much including the wage subsidy, continue to be in place and will be in place until September 25th. The wage subsidy alone has supported more than 5.3 million jobs. That is 5.3 million Canadians and Canadian families. And when it comes to small business and women entrepreneurs, I'm very pleased to inform the member opposite that this budget provides unprecedented support for small business, unprecedented support for women entrepreneurs.
The Honourable Member for Kildonan St. Paul.
Mr. Speaker, the member didn't answer my question, particularly not for the female entrepreneur in my riding, and she didn't address the fact that Liberals provided $2.9 million to Fiera Capital, a hedge fund whose executives and shareholders made over $100 million in bonuses and dividends last year. And I just feel that this is a tremendous disrespect for Canadian taxpayers, Mr. Speaker, because we see regular, hardworking, middle-class Canadians struggling through yet another wave of lockdowns, and they're going to be the ones to pay for all this Liberal borrowed debt through tax hikes. So why is the minister sticking hardworking Canadians with the bill and allowing rich money managers to make millions off taxpayers?
Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, there are a lot of suppositions in that question which are not accurate, but let me talk about the most important thing, and that is that our business and income support programs have provided and continue to provide a critical lifeline to Canadians and to Canadian businesses. The wage subsidy alone has supported 5.3 million jobs across the country. We're going to be there to support Canadians as we fight this third wave.
L'honorable député de Mégan.
The Honourable Member for Mégantic-L'Érable. Well, here's a relevant question. While small businesses across Canada continue to struggle to survive, especially in red regions of Quebec, the Liberals are turning a blind eye to the misuse of the emergency wage subsidy program. JM Fund Management, Inc. was so successful in 2020 that it ranked as the third best performing hedge fund at the 2020 Canadian Hedge Fund Awards. And this fund received thousands of dollars from the federal government. Many small businesses in Canada have not had access to any help, and they're shocked to see that ultra-rich companies are getting richer during the pandemic. Why does the Prime Minister think that his Bay Street friends deserve more support than Canada's small businesses? The Honourable Minister. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And thank you for the question, because it gives me the opportunity to reassure all Canadians and all Canadian businesses that the federal government will be there for them. All of our support programs for businesses and for individuals have done necessary work, especially now as the third wave of the pandemic is hitting very, very hard. 5.3 million jobs are being supported by the wage subsidy. The Honourable Member for Mégantic-L'Érable. Mr. Speaker, 3 years ago today, the Prime Minister and the Premier of Quebec jointly announced the construction of the rail bypass in Lac-Mégantic. 3 years later, the citizens of Lac-Mégantic are worried. Work still hasn't started on the site, and time is running out. On March 15th, I asked the Minister of Transport to reassure residents. It was only this morning, following pressure from the Mayor and the intervention of columnist Bernard Drinville, that a press release was finally issued. I'm addressing the Prime Minister here. Can the people of Lac-Mégantic still trust him to deliver on the rail bypass by 2023 at the latest? The Honourable Minister.
Monsieur le Président, depuis...
Mr. Speaker, since I was appointed, I have made this important file a priority.
Today, we reiterated our commitment to have this project completed by 2023. I've had recent conversations with CP, with the mayors of Lac-Mégantic, with the mayors of local municipalities to reiterate our commitment. Constructions will begin next year, and we are committed to completing the project by 2023, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Member for Winnipeg Centre.
Mr. Speaker, last week this government opened 50,000 permanent residency spots for essential workers, but the minister excluded many from applying, including refugee claimants, undocumented workers, and many other temporary foreign workers. Essential workers in Winnipeg Centre and throughout Canada deserve better. They put their lives at risk every day. Why does the minister perpetuate a two-tiered system of migrants instead of granting permanent residency status for all?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I am very proud of the pathway that we announced, which will allow 90,000 essential workers and recent graduates to stay in Canada with permanent residency. These newcomers are already contributing in our hospitals and our long-term care homes, and we've also introduced pathways for those asylum seekers who helped similarly in Quebec across the country. Mr. Speaker, I will always stand up for the work that we are doing on immigration in Canada, as it will accelerate our economic recovery and assure prosperity for all Canadians.
The Honourable Member for Timmins, James Bay.
Privacy Commissioner Daniel Therrien is raising serious alarm bells that Bill C-11 will undermine the fundamental privacy rights of Canadians. Case in point, Clearview AI that broke Canadian law when they took millions of photos of Canadians without their consent for their controversial facial recognition technology. Now, the Privacy Commissioner is saying Bill C-11 will actually protect the interests of companies like Clearview over the rights of Canadians. So why are the Liberals using Bill C-11 to rewrite the privacy laws to stack the deck in favor of corporate outliers like Clearview over protecting the rights of Canadian citizens?
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, and I thank the member for the question because I think we share a commitment to protect the privacy interests of all Canadians. And that's why we very much value the advice that we receive from the Privacy Commissioner. Mr. Speaker, while it's important to ensure that we provide the National Security Intelligence Establishment and law enforcement with the tools that they need to keep us safe, at the same time, we must always make an effort to ensure the protection of the privacy interests of all Canadians. And Mr. Speaker, we will
Point of order, Mr. Speaker.
Yeah, point of order. The Honourable Member for Charlemagne. Longueuil, Charlemagne. Excuse.
My apologies, Mr. Speaker. The minister's camera was not on. We couldn't see him.
Comment on that. We were hearing it. I just want to remind the Honourable Minister to turn on his camera in case he gets another question. I think, is it okay with the House that we leave it at that? We won't have him repeat it? No, not leave it off. We'll just leave. We'll have the Minister turn it on next time. The Honourable Member for Vancouver Centre.
Mr. Speaker, we know that human trafficking is a modern form of sexual slavery which disproportionately affects women and girls as well as other vulnerable and marginalized persons. I know it is crucial that survivors of these crimes have access to support services. Yet, many do not know how or where to turn for help. Can the Minister of Public Safety inform this House what resources our government has made available to support survivors of human trafficking?
The Honourable Minister.
Well, Mr. Speaker, first of all, let me begin by thanking the honourable member from Vancouver Centre for a very important question and for her unrelenting advocacy on behalf of survivors. Mr. Speaker, we acknowledge that human trafficking is one of the most heinous of crimes, and we are committed to ending it. And to that end, we are making significant investments of nearly $75 million. In particular, we are also assisting wraparound care funding for organizations such as Reach Edmonton Council and the YWCA in Moncton. The National Human Trafficking Hotline connects survivors to services any day and at any time. We are also investing in all of the supports required for the survivors of human trafficking to help them recover from this terrible offense.
The honourable member for Aurora, Oak Ridges, Richmond Hill.
Mr. Speaker, there can only be trust in our military when Canadians have confidence that their elected representatives will hold the military in check. But an unelected and unaccountable member of the Prime Minister's staff decided to withhold critical information from the Prime Minister, breaking that trust. Any allegation against Canada's top general is serious and could jeopardize the safety of the country and its citizens. So who told Katie Telford that the allegations against General Vance weren't a safety issue? The Defence Minister? The Privy Council? General Vance?
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we take allegations of sexual misconduct very seriously, and immediate action was taken. We need to make sure that no politician is ever involved in any type of investigation. This is why nonpartisan public officials, that's where the information was given to. And it's also very important, Mr. Speaker, that the previous government also followed that process. We need to make sure that we listen to our survivors and making sure that we have a harassment-free workplace in the Canadian Armed Forces, something that we are absolutely committed to doing. Thank you.
The honourable member for Aurora, Oak Ridges, Richmond Hill.
And yet, Mr. Speaker, the Defence Minister and Katie Telford withheld critical information about Canada's top soldier from the Prime Minister. Tragically, the Prime Minister gave General Vance a performance bonus, a pay raise, and allowed him to continue in his position despite serious unresolved allegations of misconduct against him. This is reprehensible and should never have happened. Under this Prime Minister, no one is at fault. No one is held accountable. Will the Prime Minister admit that he was wrong to reward General Vance while allegations of misconduct remain unresolved?
Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, our government takes allegations of sexual misconduct very seriously. No one should feel unsafe at work. And that's why when we created the Sexual Misconduct Response Center, which provides confidential 24/7 support service to the CAF members anywhere in the world. We also listen to survivors, Mr. Speaker. We put in place response and support coordination program for CAF members who experience sexual misconduct. We have a lot more work to do, Mr. Speaker, and we will get it done. Thank you.
The honourable member for Calgary, Nose Hill.
Earlier this morning, the Prime Minister stated, "A one-dose summer sets us up for a two-dose fall." Many Canadians may now be wondering when they can expect to get their second dose of vaccine and or become fully vaccinated, if they will have to wait longer than 4 months to get a second dose of vaccine, and if this means a longer period of lockdowns due to delayed vaccinations. By what date can every Canadian who wants one expect to have access to both doses of vaccines and or become fully vaccinated? A clear date.
The Honourable.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. And first, let me say today's a very important day. We hit 20 million doses delivered to Canadians across the country. And Mr. Speaker, we are now administering the most doses daily in the G7. And I want to thank all Canadians who are stepping up to accept vaccination. This is an important tool that we have. We can see the finish line, Mr. Speaker, and as Canadians get vaccinated, indeed, we see cases go down. I want to thank all Canadians for accepting vaccination when it's their turn.
The Honourable Member for Charlevoix-Saint-Charles. Mr. Speaker, this morning the Prime Minister stated in a press conference, a one-dose summer sets us up for a two-dose fall. We're used to this confusion. It's always the same with the Liberal government. The Prime Minister had already said that everybody who wanted to be vaccinated would be by September 30th. First day of fall is September 21st. Can the Prime Minister be clear and give us a specific date to Canadians so they know when they will be fully vaccinated and we'll get our freedom back? The Honourable Minister.
Merci, Monsieur.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's a good day for Canada.
Million doses into this country as of today, Mr. Speaker. And of course, we are seeing Canadians step up in unprecedented ways to get vaccinated. In fact, I will say, Mr. Speaker, we are now administering the most doses daily in the G7. What that means, Mr. Speaker, is that Canadians are taking their health seriously. They're taking the health of their communities and their loved ones seriously. And we can see the finish line, Mr. Speaker. I encourage all Canadians to take the vaccine when it is their turn.
The Honourable Member for Pierre Boucher, Les Patriotes Verchères. Mr. Speaker, the residents of Lake Megantic were victims of a rail disaster. People are still waiting for a bypass line to rebuild their town peacefully. The Prime Minister made a commitment to achieving this bypass line. He even signed a petition to that end. Will he honour his promise and work to ensure that the bypass project is completed as soon as possible? The Minister.
Monsieur le Président.
Mr. Speaker, since my appointment, I have made this important file a priority.
To reiterate our government's commitment to have this project completed by 2023. I have been in touch with CP on a regular basis. I've been talking to the mayors of Lac Mégantic and the region. Our government is committed. Project construction will begin next year, and we are committed to completing it by 2023. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Pierre Boucher, Les Patriotes Verchères. Mr. Speaker, I just asked exactly the same question to the Prime Minister that my colleague, the member for Terrebonne, asked on May 19, 2016. So it'll be 5 years. What has changed since then for the people of Lake Megantic? Not a single thing. The train still goes through the same downtown center that the fire devastated, where 47 people died. The Prime Minister had promised a bypass line for 2022. Now it's become 2023. People are now concerned that it could be 2025. It'll be 8 years this summer since the tragedy. When will it happen? When will action be taken? When will it be resolved? The Honourable Minister.
Speaker, the tragedy of Lac Mégantic is still with us today. We stand in solidarity with the people of Lac Mégantic. Our Prime Minister, our government made a solemn commitment to the people of Lac Mégantic. We have been working diligently on completing this project. I am pleased to say that progress is being made today. We've reiterated our commitment. I understand my honourable colleague wants to cause a political issue out of this, but we remain committed to the people of Lac Mégantic, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Member for Lakeland.
Mr. Speaker, the Public Safety Minister has presided over a deadly spike in organized crime. NSICOP said it's become, quote, pervasive in Canada. By 2019, groups had more than doubled in less than a decade. There are 12 new high-level threat organizations in the past 5 years alone. BC has already faced 15 gang-related murders so far this year. So, instead of targeting law-abiding firearms owners and retailers and reducing penalties for serious offenses like they are, when will the Liberals actually crack down on gangs and criminals?
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And as the member is likely aware or will recall, our government actually invested $327 million into not just the RCMP, but provincial and municipal police services capacity to do gun and gang investigations. We've also made significant investments in communities and kids to address the causes of gun crime, all of which, by the way, the member opposite voted against. But, Mr. Speaker, we also are listening to victims and to the police about the need to restrict the access that criminals have to guns. And that's why in Bill C-21, we've introduced strong new measures to keep those guns out of the hands of criminals, to remove guns from a dangerous situation made deadly by the presence of a firearm, and to prohibit a number of weapons that have no place in our society.
Well, member for Richmond Centre.
Mr. Speaker, in my home riding of Richmond Centre, on the front steps of the domestic terminal of IVL Airport, a 28-year-old was gunned down. All major roads leading out of Richmond were then shut down, and roads were jammed for miles in an unsuccessful attempt to locate the getaway vehicle, which was later found burnt. At least as of this morning, the multiple shooters have not been arrested. The RCMP confirmed this is related to the ongoing gang conflict. When will the Minister of Public Safety prioritize action against truly violent crimes?
The Honourable Minister.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I'm happy to remind this member that when we made available $327 million for the RCMP, provincial and municipal police services across this country to tackle gun violence, she voted against it. But I will also say, Mr. Speaker, we've been in contact with the police of jurisdiction. And with respect to the recent spike in gun violence, I spoke recently to the Solicitor General in British Columbia. We are committed to working together to continue to address the incidents of gun and gang violence that's taking place in British Columbia. And Mr. Speaker, we're also making significant investments, particularly in the community, so in the Lower Mainland, to invest in community organizations that help kids make better choices with respect to gun violence.
The Honourable Member for Steveston, Richmond East.
Mr. Speaker, I was at YVR mere hours before the Greater Vancouver's 10 shooting in 3 weeks took place publicly in broad daylight. This past year, the government has cracked down legal firearm owners, airsoft players, and paintball gamers, ignoring the real issues threatening Canadian lives. With their Bill C-22, criminals may not even have to serve prison time. When will they stop harassing law-abiding Canadian citizens, stand on the side of ordinary Canadians, tackle illegal guns, and remove these violent thugs from our streets?
Honourable Minister.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. And well, we promised Canadians that we would strengthen gun control in this country. The Conservatives, of course, have promised the gun lobby that they'll weaken it. Mr. Speaker, we brought forward strong legislation. We prohibited weapons that have no place in society.
Bill, and you know it.
And additionally, Mr. Speaker, I apologize. I was interrupted by a heckler there, Mr. Speaker. I wonder if you might want to address that.
Actually, I will. I want to remind the honourable members to keep on mute, and heckling online is really not a polite thing, and it's very unparliamentary. I just want to remind the honourable members, maybe the minister might want to start over so we can get the full answer, please.
Point of order. Point of order, Mr. Speaker.
Is it a technical issue, the honourable member for Sandwich Gulf Islands?
I think the intervention from our honourable colleague was more than your average heckle. It was very unparliamentary language and very disturbing.
Okay, we'll take that up after question period. It is a point of order that's worth looking at. For now, we'll continue. The honourable minister will continue with his
point of order, Mr. Speaker.
Okay. I just want to remind the honourable members, if it's a point of order emanating from question period, we take it up after question period. If it's a technical issue, I'll take it right now. Is it a technical issue?
C'était une interruption.
It was an interruption during Bill Blair's speech. Not only did the member speak, but he is not addressed. We'll talk about it after. If the honourable member could keep his comment and raise it at the end of question period, that would be great.
Right back to the Honourable Minister of Public Safety and let him answer his question without an interruption.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. And as I have said, our government has promised Canadians that we will strengthen gun control and take the actions which are necessary to reduce gun violence and to keep Canadians safe. And at the same time, we know the Conservatives have promised the gun lobby that they'll weaken gun control. Mr. Speaker, in addition to introducing legislation which will make it more difficult for criminals to gain access to guns and to interdict their supply coming in across our borders, we've also invested significant hundreds of millions of dollars in law enforcement's important work of interdicting these criminals who are engaged in gun violence in our communities right across Canada. Mr. Speaker, those investments, along with strong legislation to control guns in our communities.
The Honourable Member for Saint Laurent. Mr. Speaker, for decades, the aerospace industry has been recognized as a leader and a jewel in Canada's crown. The sector contributes over $25 billion to our economy and represents over 210,000 jobs, including in my riding of Saint Laurent. During the COVID-19 pandemic, the industry has been hard hit. Can the Minister of Innovation, Science and Industry give us an update on the measures that our government has put in place to support this innovative sector? The Minister. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I want to thank my honourable colleague for her excellent question and all her work. We recognize that the aerospace industry and its workers have been hard hit by the pandemic. That is why in the 2021 budget we included historic investments, including more than $1.75 billion to promote innovation and $250 million to better position our small and medium-sized businesses. Aerospace is one of the most innovative industries, and we will continue to stimulate innovation and accelerate the green transition. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Member for Barrie Springwater, Oro Medonte.
Mr. Speaker, the Liberals are trying to regulate the internet and the algorithms of social media platforms. Bill C-10 is an attack on accounts with blue check marks who are simply wanting to express their opinions. Recently, University of Ottawa law professor Michael Geist stated on C-10 it has been a fundamentally flawed piece of legislation from the outset. The former CRTC chair, Conrad von Finkenstein, also said the legislation should not be passed in its present form. It is clear the Heritage Minister is struggling with his own bill. Why is this Liberal government so determined on attacking Canadians' freedom of speech?
Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would like to remind the honourable member that Peter Grant, Council and past Chair of Technology, Communications and Intellectual Property at McCarty-Tétrault, came out in support of Bill C-10. So did Janet Yale, Chair of the Broadcasting and Telecommunication Legislative Review Panel, Pierre Trudel, law professor at Montreal University and first head of the L.R. Wilson Chair in Information Technology and E-Commerce Law, Alain Saunier, communications professor at Montreal University, the Coalition for the Diversity of Cultural Expression, which actually represents 200,000 artists across this country, musicians from coast to coast to coast, artists, creators, Mr. Speaker, the Canadian actors.
The honourable member for Red Deer Mountain View.
Mr. Speaker, my constituents of Red Deer Mountain View are shocked to discover that the Liberal government is planning to regulate what content they can post on social media channels like Facebook. They're also shocked and disturbed by the confused, contradictory, and misleading statements from the minister. On Monday, we found out that thanks to the public backlash, the Liberal government's Bill C-10 has now been forced on hold pending a charter review. Canadians have fought and died to defend our right to free speech and freedom of expression. Why is this Liberal government so determined to wipe out that proud tradition and put these rights at risk?
Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This will allow me to continue enumerating the list of supports that Bill C-10 has received. So where was I? Music Managers Forum of Canada, the League of Canadian Poets, Quebec English Language Production Council, Professional Music Publishers Association of Canada, the Association of Canadian Producers, the Professional Music Publishers Association, the Directors Guild of Canada and the Writers Guild of Canada, Songwriters Association of Canada, Access Copyright, and the list goes on, Mr. Speaker. Thank you very much.
The honourable member for Prince George Peace River, Northern Rockies.
Mr. Speaker, the International Grand Committee brings together parliamentarians from around the world to discuss the issues surrounding the role social media platforms play in our democracies. As one of the committee's founders, I've always stressed the importance of ensuring our fundamental right to freedom of speech is protected. It is why I'm so deeply disturbed by C-10. As former CRTC Commissioner Timothy Denton wrote, this bill is clearly intended to allow speech control at the government's discretion. What does this government have against free speech in Canada?
Honourable Minister. I believe you're on mute, the Honourable Minister, if you want to unmute.
My apologies, Mr. Speaker.
There we go.
Thank you very much. I would like to quote the Professional Music Publishers Association, which said, it is absolutely fundamental for the future, Bill C-10 is absolutely fundamental for the future of Canadian culture. It makes sure that we have Canadian creation and production and that it reaches Canadian. There is a misunderstanding in terms of what it means, and we have created the situation has created an unfair advantage for companies like YouTube, which must be changed. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Member for Hamilton East, Stony Creek.
Mr. Speaker, with Canada's most capable icebreaker, the CCGS Louis Saint Laurent, set to retire in 2030, it is critical that the Coast Guard has the capacity it needs to continue to provide support in the north. To meet this need, it's imperative that construction of new vessels begin as soon as possible. Can the Minister of Fisheries and Oceans and the Canadian Coast Guard update this on how her efforts to expand the Coast Guard fleet are going?
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I want to thank my honourable colleague for the question. Mr. Speaker, our government is committed to making sure that the Coast Guard has the tools it needs to do its very important work. That's why last week we were pleased to announce the construction of 2 new polar icebreakers, one to be built at Seaspan in Vancouver and the other in Quebec at Davie Shipyard. Mr. Speaker, the construction of these ships is going to support over 3,000 jobs across the country, including in places like Heddle Marine in Ontario and Genoa Designs in Newfoundland Labrador. Mr. Speaker, these icebreakers are critical to the North, and we're committed to making sure that the Coast Guard has what it needs. Thank you very much.
The honourable member for Courtenay Alberni.
Mr. Speaker, the Liberals have spent well over $19 million fighting the Nuu-chah-nulth people in court, denying their fishing rights. Last month, the courts reaffirmed the rights of these nations to viable commercial fisheries for the 3rd time. This government needs to allow these nations to implement their rights so Indigenous fishers can get back on the water and contribute to their coastal economy. Will the Minister and the Prime Minister respect Indigenous rights and confirm that they will not appeal this ruling?
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we're committed to working with First Nations to make sure that they are able to implement their rights. As you know, the Nuu-chah-nulth has won the court case last week. We are committed to working with them to make sure that they are able to get out on the water as quickly as possible. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Fredericton.
Mr. Speaker, last week, Bill C-3 became law. It is an important step, but so much remains to be accomplished. Whether the person was a member of the military or a victim of domestic violence, the evidence is unequivocal. The legal system is failing the vast majority of sexual assault survivors. Consultations have already taken place, and experts have laid out a roadmap that includes establishing a specialized sexual assault and domestic violence court and ensuring consistency between criminal, family, or youth protection court decisions. Mr. Speaker, even if judges are now receiving training, they are still operating inside a broken system. Is the Minister of Justice ready to commit to doing more, to table legislation that would truly reform this system and ensure that all survivors of sexual assault can access justice?
Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I thank the honourable member for her question. Mr. Speaker, we have committed in the budget a significant amount of money to help precisely victims of sexual assault get free legal advice. And we will be implementing that, Mr. Speaker, with the provinces across Canada. We know that there's more work to be done, Mr. Speaker. We will continue to do that, particularly in the context of Indigenous women and girls, Mr. Speaker, and Two-Spirit people. But for sexual assault victims across Canada, we will continue to invest, we will continue to train, we will continue to support, because they are the most important part of this equation.
And that's all the time we have for question period today. C'est tout le temps que nous avons pour la période de questions. I believe we have a point of order for the honourable member for Medicine Hat, Carson Warner.
I do, Mr. Speaker. I just need to put my headphone on first. Give me a moment, please. Would like to apologize for my intervention during question period and retract the comments that were made. And I apologize. Thank you.
I want to thank the honourable member for bringing that up, and I do want to remind all the members in the chamber, when we're in the chamber and there's heckling, it's not something that's accepted, but it's something that's tolerable. But when it's online, it really makes it impossible to conduct business. So out of respect for each other, and I know it does get emotional, and we do get carried away sometimes, but I just want everyone to please keep that in the back of their mind. We have the Honourable Minister for Seniors. We have another point of order.
Point of order. Point of order.
For seniors.
Thank you. I would like to also just reflect on what has happened during this QP as a point of order and ask you, you have been very kindly for many months advising us all how to behave in this virtual environment. However, despite those repeated reminders, we have seen an increase in interruptions that have been starting to ramp up. And I think that it's completely unacceptable, and you are doing a great job trying to remind everybody, but I would like to have you consider if there is some further action that you could take that will really deter this very inappropriate interruptions of the responses that we're getting for the questions. It's totally inappropriate, and reminders have been nice, but I think it's time for more than reminders. Everybody knows now exactly how they should behave, and what they're doing is obviously intentional. Thank you.
The Honourable Minister for her input and her point of order. I will take it under advisement. Thank you. The Honourable Member for Calgary Rocky Ridge is rising on a point of order.
Mr. Speaker, I also just point out, though, that in this place we typically accept apologies when offered from members and retractions.
I want to thank the Honourable Member for bringing that up. It is practice in the House. Any other points of order? It being 3:14, pursuant to order made on Monday, January 25th, 2021, the House will now proceed to the taking of deferred recorded division on the motion to concur in the first report of the Special Committee on the Economic Relationship between Canada and the United States. Convoquez les députés.
Call in the members. The question is the following one. Mr. McLean, seconded by Mr. Strahl, move that the first report of the Special Committee on the Economic Relationship between Canada and the United States, presented on Thursday, April 15th, 2021, be concurred in. La période de 10 minutes pour les députés votant par voie électronique a été activée. The 10-minute period for members voting electronically has started, and the House will now proceed to the vote for members participating in person. All those in favor of the motion will please rise.
Gerritsen.
Mr. Gerritsen.
Monsieur Drouin.
Monsieur Drouin.
Monsieur Deltel.
Monsieur Deltel.
Mr. Kelly.
Mr. Kelly.
Mr. Aitchison.
Mr. Aitchison.
Mr. Zimmer.
Mr. Zimmer.
Monsieur Paulus.
Monsieur Paulus.
Mr. Richards.